annotate it too so you can see it as we work through it. So let's take a look at what we have here. We're given the secant of theta is equal to -3/2. The secant of theta is equal to -3/2. And that tan of theta is greater than 0. That tan of theta is greater than 0. So let's think about this for a minute. So first of all, if secant of theta is -3/2, what is secant of theta? Let's think about that. Secant of theta is equal to 1 over the cosine of theta. And you remember that because those two do not sound like each other. You would think secant would go with sine. Secant doesn't go with sine. Secant goes with cosine. So secant of theta is equal to 1 over cosine of theta. Well, if secant of theta is -3/2, how do I do the reciprocal? How do I do the reciprocal on that? So I just flip it. So instead of -3/2, cosine of theta, I just flip it. The reciprocal is 2 over 3, -2/3. So all I'm doing is flipping it. That's what we're trying to get used to get the cosine of theta, So let's take a look further. Well, if I know the cosine of theta, that's the x value, remember? That's the x value. So if I had to draw, let's just draw a triangle. We try to draw a triangle here. It's not the best drawing, but we'll draw it. Cosine of theta, remember this is the hypotenuse. And if I'm looking at the cosine of theta, and let's just call this theta here, we'll just pick an angle, and we'll call this our right angle. Cosine is adjacent. Cosine is adjacent. So adjacent is 2, hypotenuse is 3. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, because remember sine is opposite over hypotenuse. And now what we kind of went over yesterday is the Pythagorean's identity. So let's take a look at that. Well, remember a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Well, c is hypotenuse, so that's 9. 2 right here, let's call this right here, we call that 4 plus b squared. Subtract the 4 from here, and I get b squared is equal to 5, and b is equal to plus or minus the square root of 5. Remember, it can be either way. It can be either way. So let's think about this. So if I know that this value here is the square root of 5, if I know that value is the square root of 5, and I know that this is a negative number, because I left that to be positive, you could choose either way, then this has to be negative, because tan is opposite over adjacent. So that makes it positive. So if I'm looking for tan, opposite over adjacent is 2, so that's what tan is. Sine, opposite over hypotenuse. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite over hypotenuse is negative square root of 5 over 3. So this is my sine, and this is my tan. And like I said, as we practice, we'll get better on these. So I'm going to stop my